Hello, welcome to the channel. My name's Nobby. Thank you for tuning in to episode 1 of our Path of Exile playthrough. It's going to be a beginner's playthrough. I am going to play the game at my usual slow pace and try and teach you pretty much everything in the game that I can as we come across it. So it'll be a nice long playthrough, a slow playthrough through the acts and into early maps. Path of Exile then, it is an ARPG. It is a free-to-play ARPG, and it's a true free-to-play. You can't pay for character boosts, character progression bonuses, or anything like that. So it's a true free-to-play game. There's no pay-to-win. You can pay for convenience, and some people would argue that you maybe need to with stash tabs, and you can pay for cosmetics as well. But as far as the game goes, it is entirely free-to-play. And it's a fantastic game. It really is. It's probably one of my favourite games after the MMOs. After World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, this is probably my most played game. I've got only 500 plus hours in it. I say that because some people have thousands of hours in it. And I've only really taken notice of Path of Exile since the big 3.0 changes when they came up with this 10-act story stroke tutorial before you actually get into the end game. End game is fantastic as well. Some of the fights are really hard. Chances are we are going to die a few times, but it's all part of the learning process. So if you've already seen a video on Path of Exile, you'll have seen a loot filter video on my channel. If you are on PC, you will need to watch that video, download the loot filter. That's the first thing. Alright. Now, we are going to be following a build guide. Let me change screens for you. We are going to be following a build guide. We are going to go a Toxic Rain Ranger. I've never played a Ranger class. I always go melee, and I always tend to steer towards the Cyclone Spin to Win build, because I do just find that fun. There are lots of builds out there. There are lots of build guides out there. As a new player, I would highly recommend following a build guide for at least your first couple of times through. By all means, try your own build, but you may hit a brick wall in some of the later acts and not be able to progress. At least with a build guide, it's already tried and tested. Somebody with more knowledge than me has come up with it, and you should be able to get at least to the early maps and experience the end game. By then, you'll know if you like this game or not. Alright, let me just make this a little bit bigger for you. So I am following a build guide. There's a guy, Path of Exile builds. He also brings out video guides as well. So I'm going to put all the links in the video description. The only reason I want to use his website unfortunately is Ad City. It's like walking into Night City in Cyberpunk or something. Every time you move a page, you've got a 10-second wait until the page loads while it tries to play an ad for you. It's horrible. So, Daniel, if you're watching, your builds are great, mate. They really are. Your YouTube video is great. But these adverts, horrendous, mate. They really are. The only thing I'm using this for is a Path of Building code. Alright. One program you will need, again, there'll be a link in the video description, is Path of Building. This is what most people that create build guides will use and share so you can play along with their guide. So in here, this is the passive skill tree. This is what puts most people off the game. As soon as they get to open this, then they probably quit out. Don't be overwhelmed. I will explain it all as we go. This is the passive skill tree. We're starting as a ranger, so we start in this node here, and we're going to work our way through this guide. It's separated by acts at the bottom, so we've got Act 1, Act 2, all the way up to Act 10. We've then got the end game Part 1 and Part 2, which it assumes we are going to get something called cluster jewels, and they are quite specific. There is also a slight variant of the tree without the cluster jewels. Now, there's no guarantee we will get these cluster jewels, so I'm tempted to follow this without the cluster, but there isn't that much difference between with the jewels and without. There's a few little branch offs, but we can always respec into it if we're not going to end up getting these cluster jewels. So what we will do, we are going to be on Act 1, and we are going to follow his guide, and we'll see how we do. So to get his guide, what you need to do is be on his webpage. The link will be in the video description. You want the POB code from here. You want to copy the code. You want to go into your path of building. Again, a link for this will be in the video description, but it must be the Path of Building Community Fork. It's a separate app that you need to install. But as well, if you want to look at your own builds, this is a great app to use. And what you do from here, import build. At the bottom there, you just copy that in. It'll say the code is valid. Import. Overwrite existing data is fine. And there you go. There's the build. So this is the build we are following. Again, all links will be in the video description for you. All right. The reason I've gone for this build, apart from the fact I've never played a ranger before, is because on his video guide for this build, this is what we're going to be using the most, this YouTube video. I only use his website for the Path of Building code. I then switch to his YouTube video, which is better for me because there ain't as many ads. I'm also YouTube Premium, so there's no ads. But in here, he will list the strength of the build, so it's 90 across the board, so it should be fairly good. He also lists equipment you might need. He also lists what you want to be looking for on your rare items when we get up there. But on this build, apart from some mandatory rings, and they're only mandatory because they need this crafted modifier on them, which is a reduction in mana cost, that can be crafted. They're the only things that this build has as mandatory items. The rest is all just recommended. So there's no mandatory uniques that we must have for this build. So it should be a fairly cheap build. It is also beginner friendly. And it should be relatively survivable as well. So in his guide, he goes through your gem links, what you'll need. Don't worry about this. We'll talk about these as we go through the game. He also goes through the jewels that you want. So these are the jewels that we want, including those cluster jewels. He then goes through the skill tree. As you can see there, Act 2, Act 6, End Game, cluster jewels. He then also goes through what's called the Ascendancy and the Pantheon, and the Bandits, which at the minute the meta seems to be kill all bandits for the 2 points. He then has a nice little leveling section. So yes, this should be an easy build, easy leveling process, beginner friendly. This is why I've gone for this build for us. So here, use Caustic Arrow until level 12, then you can swap to Toxic Rain. Mana management is going to be difficult, so we need to keep using a mana flask. Again, I'll explain this as we get into the game. Reaching level 22, it reckons you should buy these unique rings to fix your mana issues. But then here you go, it goes through the skills. So the first skill you'll get is Burning Arrow. Use it until you reach the first city. Pick Caustic Arrow for your reward. Keep Caustic Arrow with peer support. And it just goes through the whole leveling process. Then we put Void Manipulation onto it when we get there. Then we can replace Caustic Arrow with Toxic Rain. We can also use a Mirage Archer. It's a great time to equip the unique bow if you've got one. Level 18, replace Pierce with Vicious Projectiles. So it just goes through step by step what you should be putting in, when you should be putting it in, or when it's available to you. We've also got leveling items, which are pretty standard uniques if you get any of these dropping. Tabula Rasa. What else have we got? The Gold Dream Cap. We've also got the Wanderlust Shoes. They're pretty much standard leveling uniques. He's then got some questions, and then he's got a bit of a gameplay snippet at the start and at the end of the video as well. So you can see how it plays. So I do like his video guides for finding a build. Path of Exile Builds is the site. I am subscribed to the channel. I always look out for builds and I'll always come to his site. But a lot of it is fairly easy to use. So he goes through each piece, what should be on it, why you've got it, what should be linked, not linked, etc, etc. Don't worry about this. We're going to talk about this in the game. All right. I've also got, and I'll put a link in, I've managed to find somebody that's done a nice little speed leveling guide, if that's your thing. We are not speed leveling. We are going to go nice and slow. But if you do want to push on into the end game, you can follow this guide. It tells you when to waypoint, when to head back to town, what quest to hand in, what quest to not hand in. The great thing about Path of Exile is you don't need to accept all the quests. You can go straight for, when you know the game and the story, you can go straight for a quest objective. When you pick that objective up, it auto pops the quest for you. Really good, really good. So you'll see here, he may accept a quest off somebody, but he'll say just go straight here, get the medicine chest. And that is a quest for somebody in town. And yeah, he's not saying speak to town. He's literally saying get the medicine chest, go back, and then hand it in. So that's a good leveling guide. I'll also put that in the video description. All right, so we've got the website for the build and the Path of Building link. We've got the video guide, which is what we'll be using most of the time. We've also got our Path of Building imported, ready to go. Let me just reduce this window. It's massive on my other screen. There we go. That's better. Yep, so we've got Path of Building, Act 1 set up. You've installed your loot filter. Again, there's a video on my YouTube now of how to do that. I am going to be running the loot filter with custom sounds. So if you're playing along to this playthrough yourself, you just need to train your ears to get used to your drop sounds and not mine. And they will be different. But I've done that so you can play along. I will put chapters in this video as well. So to make it easy, if you're at a certain point and you need to just go back and review a piece of the video, I'll be putting chapters in all the videos for you as well. All these links that I'm going to be putting in the first video, I will carry them through subsequent videos. So if you ever need to link back to the Path of Exile builds YouTube video, or you want to go back and have a look at how to install your loot filter, or you've forgotten how to import the build into Path of Building, I'll have them all linked in the the video description. Right. Finally, let's go and log into game, shall we? Let me just minimize this as well. When I switch these from one screen to the other, because of the resolution, they come up huge on my other screen. Okay, that's that. That's the video up and running. OBS is good. Let's get into the game. I hope the game sound will be okay. I'll review this first video when we get started and just make sure everything's okay. Alright, so when you start the game, and I will also mention this game is available free to play on PC, Xbox and PlayStation. Xbox and PlayStation, you do not need to install the loot filter. The one that comes pre-packaged with those is a NeverSync loot filter variant, and you can just literally pick up and play. The game does come with a default loot filter, but as you get further on in the game, it's not great. NeverSync is a brilliant loot filter, and we'll start off on regular, and I'll bump that up to semi-strict as we get probably halfway through the acts. And that's usually where I leave it. I don't go any higher than that normally. I'm quite happy to trawl through the drops. It's quite exciting. Right, so characters. We have 7 to choose from. When you first start the game, you will only have 6. You will not have the Scion here. You find her towards the end of Act 3, and then she's available for you to play. But we've got 6 characters: Witch, Slayer, Marauder, Assassin stroke Rogue, Templar, and the Ranger. The Ranger is what we're going for. And the leagues. Okay. There are 2 leagues. You have the Standard League. This is the Eternal Realm. Never gets reset. Characters will never get deleted unless you delete them yourself. And this is where all your characters live, eventually. We have the current Challenge League, which is Trial of the Ancestors at the minute. This is live. It's now early October. It's the 8th of October today. This is live for another 6 to 8 weeks. They're usually live for 3 months. And then it's a hard reset for everybody. Everybody starts with a brand new character, level 1. They all race to level 80, 90 to the end game. And then they all race and try and get to level 100. They have all sorts of world first races when the leagues launch, but you get a new league every 3 months. With that new league will come a new mechanic, and it's always something different. If those mechanics prove popular, they then get put into the base game, usually reworked a little bit. At the end of the current Challenge League, your characters will get dropped into the Standard League. So you'll never lose your characters. They'll just get dropped into the Standard League so you can carry on playing them, and then the new league launches. So the new league currently Trial of the Ancestors. You then have a couple of options. You can do it on normal softcore or hardcore, which is permadeath. Okay, so if you're killed in hardcore, your character is deleted off the hardcore server and goes back to standard as well. You then also have a couple of options. We have solo self-found, so this option will disable trade and partying for this character. You are basically playing the game as a single player. You are relying on your own RNG, you're relying on your own crafting prowess, stroke RNG, to get items that you need. You can't trade, you can't party up. That is also the same in the hardcore, solo self-found. It's also the same in standard. You can have solo self-found. There is now a new game mode called Ruthless. Extreme item scarcity among other challenges. Yeah, this is a tough one. You have to build around pretty much the gems you're going to get as quest rewards. So you need to know the game to do Ruthless. You can still get gems drop, but item scarcity is a thing. I've tried a little Ruthless run. I did get halfway through Act 1 before I died. I didn't do bad. But yeah, that is a fun one. As a new player, I would highly recommend going into the current Challenge League. And I would highly recommend just going in on the normal settings. Don't do a solo self-found, and certainly don't do a Ruthless. And don't do a hardcore. When I play, and I'm not doing this video, I like solo self-found. I like the added challenge of not being able to trade, not being able to group up. It just makes those drops that you do get a little bit more exciting when it's something good. But for this tutorial beginner's guide, we will be going through in the normal Challenge League, because I do want to be able to demonstrate to you the trading, how to trade, how to buy, how to sell. They will be the basics. You can then go away and play to your heart's content, similar to our World of Warcraft playthrough that's currently ongoing. I'm covering the basics for you to be able to get started in the game, and then you can crack on and enjoy. Now, Path of Exile can be a little bit overwhelming at first. The information you get is going to be front heavy. Alright, there's going to be a lot of front-loaded information. As we play through, I'm going to be playing nice and slow at a nice boomer speed. It may take us 40 hours to get through the 10 acts or more. We're not in any rush. And if we run out of time, and I've not recorded all the videos before the Ancestor League drops to Standard, we'll carry on going through it in Standard, even when the new league launches. I may then set up a second character and do a different build when the new league comes round. But we'll see. We'll see how this one does first. Alright, so it's going to be a nice slow playthrough. We are going into the Trial of the Ancestor Challenge League, normal, not solo self-found, not Ruthless. Okay, that. Okay, that. My name is available. Lovely. And we are in game. Like I said at the start, this is probably episode 0. And it is episode 0 because we're at 20 minutes and I'm not going to continue. We will come back onto this character in the next video and we will start playing along. As long as you've got your options set for yourself. We will go through these. So you do want your loot filter. You want it on regular settings. I'm on custom sounds. Just make sure that's loaded into the game. Graphics, have a play around with these. I'm trying DirectX 12. I may knock that back to 11 or Vulkan. It's in beta, so we'll see. It might be okay. If we get a few stutters and graphics breaks, I might change that. In the game itself, you do want your loot filter on, and I always like auto-equip enabled as well. In the UI, you can have the clock, if you like the clock. This game is a time sink. You will lose track of time in this game. The map, I always like, if you look at the mini-map here, I always like to turn down the transparency on the landscape. It does look nice and hand-drawn, but it just makes it so much easier to see where you're going without that. And the actual map transparency I have all the way up. Down here, let's have a look. Camera shake you can turn off if you want. I always like to show sockets. I always have the default notches. If you are colorblind, you may want a large pattern. We will always have full descriptions on. I always like to show the life and mana levels. So that's a numeral above the pots. I always like to have the bar above my character, and also on enemies, and also on allies, which includes things like your totems and little golems and things you can summon. Other than that, I think that's pretty standard. Sound, I think the game sound is okay, but I'll review the video and check that. I may need to turn it up or down. Keybinds, if you want to change a few keybinds, I have my flasks on my mouse function buttons. Spacebar, I've changed, that's a T normally. I've changed it to space because that will be my dash ability. Also worth noting, you have a second toolbar by holding control. So you've got Q, W, E, R and normally T, and then you've got control. So you've got 10 slots plus the 3 up here. I tend to use the off ones for heralds and auras. Again, we'll get to them in game eventually. And then these I'll have as active abilities, space as my oh shit button for dash usually. And notifications, again, you can turn off friend invites, PvP invites, all that sort of thing there. Alright, so there's your options. Play around with the graphics to suit your PC. And we shall be back very soon for another video. Episode 1 really, but episode 2 actually. And we'll start playing the game. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you are looking forward to this video series, please drop a sub on the channel. Thumbs up the videos, that always helps. And I'll see you again soon for the next one. Take care.